Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Zoning Board of Appeals. The City of Peabody Zoning Board of Appeals meets tonight in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40A, and other applicable laws. Tonight's hearing will be conducted in the following manner. The Secretary will read the legal notice or state that such notice has been waived. All applications usually are heard in the order they were received in the City Clerk's office or as otherwise designated by the chair, and tonight we do have some switching going around. The petitioner or petitioner's representative will present the subject application to the board. What that means is when it's your turn to come up to the podium, you will state your name and address for the record, and then you will tell us what you want, why you want it. If you're not doing it, your contractor is doing it, or your attorney, that's fine. The chair may limit the length of all remarks. All parties in interest will be given an opportunity to speak either in favor or in opposition to a pending application, and the board may receive similar written communications to be placed on the public record. So what that means is after you explain what you're doing and why you're doing it, we then will ask you some questions, and then it is opened to your neighbors who are sitting in the audience, and they will come up, state their name and address for the record, and say that they are in favor and why, or in opposition and why. And if we have many people speaking in favor or in opposition, we would appreciate it if some people before you have stated exactly what you want to say, that you just state your name and address for the record and say, I agree with my previous neighbors. We would like you to stick to the subject. Remember, you are here for dimensional relief. You are not here to tell us how wonderful or how horrible your neighbors are and why. That's between you and your neighbor. That's not between the zoning board. So sometimes that happens, and we really don't want to hear that. The other thing is, inevitably, every night when there's a lot of, during meetings when there are a lot of people, you might forget something that you want to say. You can come back up to the podium, just come up, but please do not yell something from your seat. It's extremely inappropriate, rude, and I would appreciate it if that didn't happen. After that, you, the petitioner, can come back up to the podium, or your attorney or your contractor, and you can address some of the concerns your neighbors had, if that is the case. Then we decide either for or against. The decision is then typed and filed with the city clerk. Once the decision is filed with the city clerk, you have a 20-day appeal period, so you can't do anything for 20 days. After tonight, whether you're approved or denied, Clerk Carla McGrath will be in touch with you for any questions and the rest of the procedure. In compliance with the open meeting law, this hearing is also being recorded by our clerk. When you come to the podium, please speak directly into the microphone clearly, and only speak when at the podium to ensure that you are on the record. Now then, so the first thing we're going to do is we are going to take Spiro DeMarcus, Attorney John Kelty, because this is going to be continued. So if you are here for 8 Bourbon Street, we have something to read into the record.
From Attorney Jack Kelty, dated Friday, September 10th, to Carla McGrath. Ms. McGrath, please accept this email as my request on behalf of the applicant Spiro DeMarcus, trustee, to continue the application regarding 8 Bourbon Street to the meeting of October 18, 2021.
So, motion to accept.
Motion to accept the continuance.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So we have approved your continuance for October 18th. Just as a side note, and this is for everybody involved from this point on and anybody listening, we really cannot have late correspondence being submitted the night of a hearing, 2 nights before a hearing. So correspondence is considered late if not submitted by 4 p.m., 12 days before the meeting date. It is at the discretion of the board if the late correspondence will be accepted. Late correspondence may result in a continuation of the hearing. This deadline allows the board members, clerk, and interested parties sufficient time for review. That's that. Now we are going to hear a continued application, residences at Endicott, 40 to 42 Endicott Street. And we need, before you begin, Attorney Panos, we need a motion to accept 3 correspondences. August 9th of this year, a memo from Stacy Burnson. July 6th of this year, a memo from Will Politz with World Tech Engineering and Horsley Witten Group's letters. And September 15th, a memo from Will Politz, water and wastewater responses. I need a motion to accept.
Motion to accept the 3 correspondence.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, those are accepted. All right, then.
Good evening, members of the Zoning Board of Appeals. My name is Jason Panos, practicing law at 246 Andover Street, Peabody, Massachusetts. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, the residences at Endicott LLC, and I'm joined with our project manager and engineer, Tony Capicetti from Hayes Engineering, and also the project principal, Pat Tedisco. You just accepted into the record some correspondences which had to do with peer review. And I believe Will Politz from the Department of Public Services is here to present those memos through the chair and the rest of the board. And what I would recommend, because we have been working through our peer review responses but have not, we're not able to timely submit those responses within your 12-day period. We'd like to give oral testimony to keep things going and to be in a position that in the next 10 days give you our comprehensive set of written responses with any plan changes, and also work with Mr. Politz and the peer reviewers to the extent necessary prior to your continued hearing, which I believe you mentioned was October 18th.
Right.
So that we could take that time in between, reconcile any outstanding issues, and present a comprehensive joint memo between the Department of Public Services and the project team. Does that sound acceptable?
Yes.
Okay. So before Mr. Politz comes to the podium, I'd like to talk a little bit about the correspondence you received from the Community Development and Planning Department Assistant Director Stacy Burnson. In her memo, she talks about 2 issues. I'll take the easy one first. She recommends that the affordability restriction be extended from 30 years, as we propose. That is the length of time by which the affordability restriction on the proposed affordable units stay affordable from 30 years to in perpetuity. We have no problem with that, and we will agree to that as a condition. The other thing that she talks about is of the affordable units, and there are 17, being 25% of the 68 units proposed. 5 of those 17 units be set aside to those earning at 50% of the HUD area median income. And that's all pretty clearly broken out in her memo. we agree with the general tenor of what she's trying to accomplish. It's just the timing is wrong. The time to have raised that, very similar to the municipal comments that were tendered in conjunction with the Wallace Street project, which is not yet before you, but is going through the project eligibility phase. The city in the municipal comment period raised that as something the developer ought to consider back in project eligibility. That is the appropriate time to raise it. When the matter clears project eligibility and is before the board, that makes it much more difficult because we now have to retool our pro forma. We would then have to go back to Mass Housing, adjust our project eligibility letter, probably add more units to compensate and pay for the reduced income eligibility for those 5 units, and then present basically a newer application. It wouldn't change the timelines. It wouldn't change the fact that we do have a valid project eligibility letter. It just changes the project a little bit, and it would require us to backtrack. So we would suggest that that is not going to be an acceptable condition for us, and I can reduce that to a writing because ultimately we believe that would render the project as it is currently presented to the board uneconomic. In other words, the project numbers could not facilitate what she's asking for. And it doesn't render the project any less viable as an affordable housing development project because all of our units are affordable to those earning at 80% HUD area median income, which is what is required by the statute and the supporting regulations. So with that, and through the chair, we'd like to respond to Mr. Will Pollitz's comments and peer review, and you accepted into the record 2 memos from Department of Public Services based on the peer review.
Good evening. For the record, William Pollitz, City Engineer, the Department of Public Services. So if it pleases the Madam Chairwoman, I would just go through some of the highlights or just some of the items that we're looking to have the applicant address as part of the revisions. Sure. So from the July 6th memo, which deals with traffic and stormwater and environmental issues, we'll start with traffic. Some of the items we'd be looking to have addressed is we'd like to have an analysis, traffic analysis done on the intersection of Warren and Endicott and also at the Site Drive entrance, and that would include crash data. We'd have them take a look at providing pedestrian and bicycle accommodations. Also, we'd like to see the crosswalk by Farnham Park upgraded. We'd like to have them address what they're proposing for transportation demand management measures.
Will, they can't hear you in the back. Just go a little closer to the mic.
Certainly.
Thanks.
Yep. So the crosswalk at Farnham Park and their transportation demand management to identify those. We'd like to see increased parking spots on the property to bring the ratio up to 1.45 in that area, which would be approximately, I think, 1 parking spot per bedroom. We'd like to see the visitor and the ADA parking spots identified in the plan. We'd like them to show us turning templates for waste hauling trucks for dumpster removal and delivery. We'd like to see snow storage identified. So that's pretty much the items in respect to the transportation we'd be looking to have done. In regards to stormwater, we'd like to see the precipitation data brought up from what they're currently using to the new standards of NOAA Atlas 14, which is pretty standard. Let's see, we'd like to have them infiltrate some parking lot stormwater. Right now, they're infiltrating their roof stormwater, which is clean stormwater. We'd like to see if they can address removing total suspended solids from their proposed parking lot. We think there's going to be need to do some more soil testing in the future out there, depending if they maintain where they're proposing the infiltration system. Some soil testing was done out there in the area, but not the exact area that they're proposing it. Some of the tests came out, some of the groundwater came out higher than anticipated, I think, from their design, so they're going to need to revise their stormwater in respect to the holding a minimum of 2 feet above the seasonal high groundwater table, and provide groundwater mounting analysis, and we'll need to take a look at their drawdown analysis, see how long it'll take to drain down. At this time, I think it would be appropriate for them to provide an operation and maintenance budget for the stormwater in the property. They have a driveway cut out there where a catch basin is, so we just want to make sure that that catch basin is still going to function, or they need to relocate that catch basin. Some of the environmental aspects we'll be taking a look at is there's some questions that the peer consultant has in respect to the historical industrial use of the property. There was 2, I believe, underground storage tanks out there. If there was any discharge to the existing dry well on property, and if there was any, what type, if any, releases were in the storage shed. So with respect to that, we'd also like their environmental consultant to address the stormwater to confirm that they're comfortable where the applicant is proposing to infiltrate. So that pretty much addresses the stormwater and the environmental and the parking to date that we're looking to have them address. The other item is from our September 15th memo. In respect to water, it's more or less just cleaning up the plan, getting more information how they plan to abandon the existing water infrastructure on site and how they plan to bring in their new utilities. So more housekeeping on that and hydrant locations. So water is more a housekeeping issue. Wastewater, we'd be looking to have them line some sewer mains upstream of this project to reduce inflow and infiltration in order to create capacity in the system itself in front of their project. So, and then we'd be looking to have that based upon the I&I fee that we calculate to be $108,900. So we'll be looking for that money to be used by the applicant for a project to do some lining of the sewer system itself. So those are pretty much the main points of the 2 memorandums.
So every time I drive down Endicott Street, especially from where the building starts to where the building ends, there is always a car or 2, half on the street, half on the sidewalk. Is it possible to, from the first building, cut in, and take part of that sidewalk to the bridge, and then cut again, just to make the street a little wider so cars don't park half on the sidewalk? Now, I know once the building is built, that probably won't happen, but to me, it just seems something to consider.
Well, from our department, we could take a look where the frontage is, but I think their property line, I think, is close to probably the back of sidewalk where it is today, though I'd have to verify. That's just an assumption on my part. And if that's true, then it would really be, I guess, the direction. I would suggest, if that's the direction the board would like, that the board then let the applicant know that, because they could put something like that in their plans. I mean, there would be a domino effect with their plans. They'd have to modify things, because I think their building, I think, is rather close to the property line. So it's something they would have to take a look at.
So what do you think? Do you know what I'm trying to say? Yeah. So
But-
there's the sidewalk, and then there's grass, and then there's half a car on grass and half the car in the street. So I just thought, if you cut that grass away, you still had the sidewalk, but I'm not sure as, like you said, close to...
Right, it may be on their at the end of the day, to get what you want accomplished, we'd have to take a look at it, and maybe the sidewalk infrastructure may have to go on their property, which could be done, but I think that would have to be, you know, the applicant would obviously have to be involved in that. They would have to accommodate the sidewalk, and then we could take an easement back over the sidewalk to maintain it in perpetuity.
If that should happen, is that something that the state comes in to do, or is that all city work?
If it's on the applicant's property, and the applicant proposes as part of the project, and that's how it gets approved, then the applicant could just do it as part of their whole project. If it's solely within the public right-of-way, and if it were to move forward, then that would just be city work, not state. But I think the first thing we need to do is take a look at how much frontage, how wide is the right-of-way? Can we push a sidewalk further back and not encroach on private property? Private property being the applicant's property. And if we can, then that's possibly a solution, depending on which way the city goes. I can't speak, you know, for the whole department. But if we can't physically fit it in there due to the width constraints, I mean, you have the applicant in front of you at this point, so, you know, it's something they could certainly take a look at to see what that's going to entail for their project. But could it be done? Yes, it certainly could be done. There's no question it can't be done. It could be done. But it just depends if the applicant is able to fit it in, and how much you want the applicant to do it. Obviously, they're in front of you to get an approval, so what you want, they may do. But we can take a look at it as part of our peer review once they submit their plans to us. I do. Yes,
So
you
how-
want to be
how
able to
many-
get parking in front of the building.
Yeah.
That's not halfway in, halfway out.
Right, and
Yep.
it's sort of like eases.
Yep.
And then.
Yep.
Okay.
I know exactly what you're looking for.
If you don't, you can go down 8th Street in Charlestown.
Yeah. Nope.
That was one of my thoughts from the beginning. Okay,
Yeah, we can, I mean, the applicant obviously heard what you're looking for. I'm sure they'll take a look at it. I can't speak for them, but we can certainly, as part of the peer review, see if it's something that the right-of-way can accommodate, or if it's something that we would have to, like I said, go on private property to get it physically put in. But we can get you an answer on that.
thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sure. Name and address it for the record.
Thank you. Tony Capichetti, Hayes Engineering, 603 Salem Street in Wakefield, project engineer for the residences. Starting off with where Will ended, that's something we're more than happy to look into. I just looked at the plan. We have about 11 feet from face of curb to the building. We had a grass strip that was 4.5 feet wide with the, I'm sorry. We had a grass strip that was about 4.5 feet wide with the 6-inch curb.
Okay, so, yeah,
Do you
there you
mind?
go.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, just speak louder.
So we have a 4.5-foot wide grass strip and curb with a 6-foot wide sidewalk. So we could drop to a 5-foot or a 4-foot sidewalk with an integral curb and take that grass strip away. And because of the way the building is set up, if you recall, the first floor has kind of got a mezzanine where it's stepped back, and then the second story is over that. We have some green space in that mezzanine, so it wouldn't look too peculiar there. And we could mark those spaces, you know, as public spaces, maybe restrict the time limit on the parking there, so you don't have residences parking overnight, but it would work for pickup, drop-off, and visitors and people in the neighborhood using the park as well. So we can definitely look at that. You know, Will gave a very good overview of the comments. We're working through them. One of the things that's kind of delayed us is the traffic counts. We wanted to wait until after school started so we could get a worst-case scenario, so those have been completed early September. The other requests were all very reasonable. We're working through them, and we hope to have everything, or we will have everything over to Will on the 29th, and then that'll give some time to get a response back in time for the meeting.
Now, I hate to beat this up, this widening of the street, but it just strikes me as important. So how do we move forward with just seeing what it looks like and if you can do it?
I could sketch something out tomorrow and forward it to DPS to take a look at, and then if that's something that, DPS feels is appropriate moving forward, we can advance that design as part of this revision.
And you might want to let me know, so I can see, will you?
I can copy the ZBA on the email.
Yes, perfect.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you very much for your time. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them, but I know you were very nice and to let us go first, so we don't want to tie up your meeting here. It's,
My pleasure.
So before you enter public comment period, if you do have any questions of the project team, and echoing Tony, thank you very much for bumping us up on the agenda. We appreciate it.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Just in reviewing Will's memo, the site access and parking part of it.
Which one? Which memo? The first one from July?
July 6th one.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sorry, June 2nd, it looks like it is. I apologize. The June 2nd memo, which talks about the parking spaces, and it looks like it was the city's recommendation that 11 parking spaces be added to bring it up to one spot per bedroom. And what I would just kind of like to hear on this is, since we're dealing with a more limited footprint in this area than others,
Yes.
that you don't, even though it looks larger because you have the Peabody public transportation for the buses behind it,
Yes.
but it's kind of more of a post stamp type thing, is I'm curious why we would be increasing the parking to meet that need as opposed to scaling back the number of one bedrooms maybe, or take out a two bedroom in order to accommodate a more reasonable number of parking spots. I don't see how we're going to squeeze 11 more spots in if it's already used up.
I'm glad you brought that up. So we did reconfigure the plan, and one thing you'll see in the September 29th correspondence and amendments is we actually, by moving things around a little bit, and Tony can speak to this, we add 5 spaces, so we split the difference. So we're now from 88 parking spaces to 93. We can't get you to 99, but we think that 1.3 parking spaces a unit is in line with other developments that we've proposed before this board. And one thing that's worth pointing out as well is that we do not rely on any compact spaces for this project, and I know that was a bit of a source of contention on both Farm Avenue and King Street. All of the spaces proposed are full size. And we're at 1.4 spaces per unit, so we've bumped up that ratio without reliance of an increase in compact spaces. So we hope that answers your question. And also we're evaluating, as we have in the other projects, the other developments, joining the North Shore Transportation Management Association, so that should alleviate the need for parking, because it will provide ride share and transportation alternatives to and from the site. And now we will have that up the street on King Street, and we'll provide more of a network as the Central Street reconfiguration project unfolds and begins construction, where I know that is a very important element, transportation management and flow down Central Street, and we connect directly to that corridor as well. Through the chair, Tony, do you want to add to that with regard to the parking and how you got to the 93 spaces?
No, I mean, I'm going to be out of a job if Jason keeps this up. But yeah, so looking at the maneuvering space for the dumpster area, we swung at 90 degrees, and that opened up some space. Now, one of the things to be cognizant of is anytime you add parking, you obviously lose landscaping. But given the previous use at this site, I think we're still going to have a visual improvement over what's there, and there'll still be more landscaping than what's there currently.
Oh, I think you'll have a big improvement on visually.
Any other questions from the board?
To the chair, just a comment if I could. And I'd really like to go back to the income eligibility as stated in Stacy's memo. And as you stated, it would be very difficult. Well, this is very difficult. This is not an easy thing to do, to go through these. And I know our access to the financials of the project are limited, although they're not completely restricted. I think Stacy did a very good job of just giving us simple facts, okay, of how she feels and how the city feels, that it's, regretfully, the rents are not truly affordable. And if the purpose of this is to provide affordable housing, then I think really you should give it more thought than to say we won't be agreeable to that because it should have been done at a different stage of the project. Well, this is our first bite of the apple. This is our stage of the project, and I think a city came out with a very good point. So I appreciate the fact that you wouldn't agree to that condition, and I understand it might be difficult. Nothing's easy. I think you owe us a little bit more than to say it'll make it uneconomic. We have no idea without seeing the financials of what's going to make it uneconomic. All right, so to say that to us at this stage, I mean, we could press you and say, all right, we'll make you tell us why it's uneconomic. That's allowable under the 40B laws. So, all right, then you prove to me. We want this condition. You prove to me that it's uneconomic. Well, I think it should be easier than that. I think you could sit down, to automatically say, we might have to add on some more units. Well, that seems to be the answer for everything. We'll just add on a few more units. Well, that's not the purpose of this, all right? Actually, I think, 68 is quite a few units to put in that location, but that's neither here nor there. But I just think the developer owes us a little bit more than to say it's going to make it uneconomic. Well, tell me how. And to say it's going to be difficult. Well, this is difficult for us, too. Nothing says it's going to be easy. You just don't have to, So it's a little bit more inconvenient for you people. Well, that's fine. I think it's an important point. And I'm just not going to say that even though you don't agree with this as a condition, that as a board, I think it's an important condition. And I would like to see it there until you can tell me why it can't be there, not just that it's going to be difficult. I think we work a little bit closer than that to just come out with those blank statements and saying it's difficult, it's going to make it uneconomic. I think it's an important case. If we're going to provide affordable housing, then let's make it affordable. And I think Stacy did a great job, very easily with one paragraph, of saying why she thinks it's not, and it makes a lot of sense to me. Thank you.
Through the chair, if I can answer. I would like to indicate that this is actually the city's second bite at the apple on this. There was a first bite at the apple during a rather exhaustive and extensive municipal comment period. During site eligibility, where this could have been and should have been raised at a time when we could have, through the state approval process, through where it determined that the site is eligible, looked at, or actually the state could have imposed upon us a restriction that said, you need to provide more affordable units. However, I do dispute that we're not providing affordable units. according to Stacy's analysis, and I agree with you, I indicated in my opening remarks, I thought she did a good job laying it out. But the fact of the matter is at the time of the municipal comment period, the housing production plan, which is basically what this is based from, was totally before the city, under consideration, about to be approved by DHCD. So these numbers weren't new. And one thing I would point to just to assist the board is the MHP Chapter 40B Handbook for Zoning Boards of Appeals, which I have handy all the time, and I think you've probably memorized it, right? I think it's a good source, but if you look at page 24, there's a section, Matters Reserved for Subsidizing Agencies. That would be Mass Housing in this case, who issued the project eligibility letter. And the third bullet point and the fourth bullet point kind of pretty much encapsulate what I indicated very clearly, that the subsidizing agency controls matters, the following examples of which, and I'm paraphrasing, the regulatory agreement or use restriction that controls affordability and program requirements. And the fourth bullet point, financial feasibility, cost examination, and profit limitation. All of that is all in the ambit of what Stacy is talking about. So we are providing, to the extent the law requires of us, affordable housing. 25% of our units are affordable at 80% HUD area median income. And we did it that way because, going back to comments we've made with relation to other projects, other developments that I've presented before this board, we're talking about, by the way, with a 70% local set-aside. People who have a connection to this community, 70% of those units are going to be available to people earning at 80% HUD area median income. And who are those people? Those are frontline workers, they're police officers, firefighters, they're teachers. So we are producing affordable housing. It's not meant to be affordable to everyone. It's meant to be affordable within the income qualifications that are prescribed to us by a formula. And we do that, we accomplish that. So we're happy to look at the consideration, and we have looked at it. It just 5 units out of the 17 we provide at 50%, AMI, a full 30% less than the 80%, obviously, is a lot. And it has to come from somewhere. And the project pro forma doesn't support that. The finances do not support that. And so it has to come from somewhere. So I'm happy to continue to have the conversation, perhaps at the October 18th meeting, to kind of prepare you a little more, but the time to raise that would have been when the municipal comment period came about in the first instance. That's all I'm suggesting. I'm not suggesting that Stacy didn't do a very thorough job. She did. She did. But that is our position on the matter.
Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair, are there any other questions before?
From this board, so at this time, I will take anybody from the audience that would like to speak.
And will remain available to answer any questions you deem appropriate
Sure.
that arise from the public comment period.
Thank you very much.
Hi, can everybody hear me over there? Great. Thank you very much. My name is Ann Manning Martin, and I reside at 37 Dexter Street in Peabody. I'm here this evening as I've been following very closely all the 40B applications affecting the city of Peabody for the last few years. Mass Chapter 40B is meant to be a tool for collaborative decisions between a city and a developer in order to achieve a meaningful goal to provide needed affordable housing. The spirit and intent of 40B is to provide sensible building with respect to its ultimate size and density, while still allowing for a reasonable profit for the developer. I am again advocating for sensible development with respect to this development's size and density. Zoning boards of appeals and town officials can and should work with developers to modify massive projects, such as this one proposed in an R1A residential tight-knit neighborhood. The ZBA may include conditions and requirements on any aspect of the project, such as height, density, site plan, utility improvements, long-term affordability, lack of open space, and parking, among other modifications and conditions. With respect to the process by which this matter of 4042 Endicott project comes before the ZBA, I want to be very clear here. Not one neighbor or resident has ever said they want nothing to be built there. They agree that something needs to go there. They want and deserve to have open discussion with the developer where they could air their concerns about their quality of life, their safety, and their property values. They wanted to be heard, and throughout this process, they have been denied that opportunity, and they are rightfully very angry. They do want something built there, but they want something that they can live with, near and around. Everyone expects the developer will and should make a profit. No one I've talked to is disillusioned to think that isn't his right. But just how much is too much he is to make on his investment at the expense of the neighbors, again, their quality of life, and their number one financial investment, their homes. We know the law and confines within the ZBA must operate is that they cannot put restrictions or conditions that make the developer's project economically unfeasible. But with this project, we have the bonus of insight and documents identifying where in the ballpark that number of economic feasibility lies, and that is in the original approved special permit for 32 units, not 66. His current plan is more than double that approved size and density. So this project before you is leaps and bounds from being economically unfeasible, and can and should be reduced in size, scale, density, and the starting point of those negotiations should be the 32 units. I think it's important to point out for the record that this ZBA opted not to file for safe harbor under CMR Department of Housing and Community Development regarding low or moderate income housing on this project. It's 760 CMR 56.03 B and A. The city cleared several hurdles in order to be eligible for safe harbor status at the time of this application for Endicott Street, as we were over 10% subsidized housing inventory, as the 116 units approved by this board on Farm Ave were effective the date the approval was filed, notwithstanding any appeal. As explained to the City Council by the Director of Community Development as to why the ZBA did not apply for safe harbor after reaching our 10% subsidized housing inventory, we were told that the appeal period needed to be cleared. If this was the case, it was in violation of the Affordable Housing Statute. In addition to meeting our subsidized housing inventory 10% goal, we also had an approved and active housing production plan on file with the state. Another criteria to be eligible for safe harbor, but this too was not utilized for simple eligibility purposes by the ZBA for safe harbor from this development. So a reasonable person would conclude that this board wants to hear this project and wants to be the approving authority for what the project's scope and size and density will be for this development. I just hope this board acts reasonably and negotiates a sensible housing development for this residential neighborhood, one that they can live with. The original proposed plan for this site had 36 units with an attractive gambrel roof that added an aesthetically pleasing facade that the neighbors appreciated. When the developer claimed he had removed an entire floor from the original plan, he actually just removed the beautiful gambrels, removing not an entire floor, but rather only 4 units, bringing the number to the 32 units. If you look at the height of the abutting 43 and 47 Endicott Street, you will see they are 30 feet high, which is the maximum height allowed in an R1A. By keeping in line with the height of these two of the taller houses in that neighborhood, the ZBA will take a huge step towards maintaining the character of that neighborhood. The developer may need another 5 feet or so, and to be fair, I think that is fair, given the need to offer him an economically feasible business venture. It's one thing to convert old factories into housing, but it's another thing entirely to create new housing that looks like a factory in the middle of a residential single-family home neighborhood. Without the gambles, this project looks like an old warehouse. If you do not reduce the size, scope, and density of this project, you block out the Mr. McIntyres and other abutters' sunlight. You change their entire quality of life. You put them in harm's way. You'll have new residents looming over the Mr. McIntyres and other abutters who have lived in their homes for generations. These new residents will be peering down on them, much like what happened to the residents at Longview Way and Veterans Memorial Drive when the 4-story building was constructed behind the old Brown School housing development. It was a shock to residents going from living next to open space to 4-story apartments filled with people looking down into their yards and windows. I'm sure Councilor Osborne remembers those valid complaints that we didn't envision at the time, but it was a real problem and one we shouldn't repeat. And that is what you will be supporting here tonight if you do not take into consideration those that have to live next to this thing. I strongly support removing 1 floor and putting the 4 gambles back on. This will reduce the density and therefore the traffic, the parking issues, and the lack of open space that are presented with a development of this size in that tight footprint. This will also present a much more aesthetically pleasing structure for that neighborhood. And doing so will leave the developer with somewhere between 26 to 28 units, which I argue is economically feasible, albeit a much larger development than he has ever taken on and has admittedly experienced only with the construction of single and 2-family homes. He is inexperienced developing massive project that he's proposing. I think that needs to be taken into consideration. And when I spoke to Mass Housing and I asked that question specifically, and she said, yes, the ZBA should take that into consideration. Again, my name is Ann Manning Martin. I thank you for your time, and I hope you do the right thing for the actual residents of Endicott Street. Thank you very much.
Counselor, man, I do have a couple questions just to follow so I can have some clarity for myself for the future meetings. So you threw a few numbers out here. I just want to make sure I'm looking at what you have for what you believe to be sensible. We used numbers of 32 units, 36 units, 26, or 28. So I just want to be clear, you know, where you stand. Do you think it should be 32? Do you think it should be 26?
Sure.
I can.
Thank you. That's a good question. I'm happy to clarify it if I can.
Of course.
The original proposal that Mr. Didisco put forward was 36 units. After some discussion, that the height of the building was way too high for that neighborhood and the character for that neighborhood and the density. He characterized it as removing a floor. He did not remove a floor. That would probably be 8 to 10 units. He removed the 4 really beautiful gambles on top, just 4 gambles that evidently allowed for 4 units. So that is why the number went from 36 to 32. The 4 gambles were removed, but it was still 3 or 4 stories. 3 stories, I think. But it was well above the height restrictions in an R1A, which is 30 feet. So that's where the 32 comes in. So if we go back to what's economically feasible for this developer, if he were to put back the 4 beautiful gambles on top and remove an actual floor, I think his numbers would come down to the 26 to 28. I'm not a developer. I can't build even a single-family home, but just common sense and simple math, I'm using, those numbers would be 26 to 28. And again, it was economically feasible for him at 32. I'm sure he was making a great profit at 32. So I think Councilor Osborne's points are well made and well taken, that, what is economically feasible and how much profit is too much profit at the expense of the neighborhood and their financial investments of their homes, which is most people's number one financial investment they make in their entire lives. Did I answer your question? Thank you. Thank you for asking for clarification. I appreciate that.
Through the chair? Yep. Councilor Manning Martin, I just wanted clarification on something you said about the public being denied an opportunity to make comment. I think we just opened up this public comment period about 10 minutes ago, so I just wanted to see what you meant by that as far as them being denied the opportunity to be involved and participate in this process. Sure,
I'm happy you asked that. These folks were the guinea pigs for the Zoom process by which government started to operate.
I don't think anybody was a guinea pig.
Okay, I'm answering his question. Okay. Okay, these individuals, this neighborhood was the first special permit hearing heard by Zoom. It was a disaster. Phone calls dropped off. People were cut off. Many people in that neighborhood didn't have and don't have internet. They don't have computers. A lot of people like Mr. McIntyre, I think he might be 95 by now. I'm not sure. He may have better computer savvy than I do. Mine's terrible, but you have older folks down there that weren't able to access Zoom, and they were shut out completely. So they had no public input. This process, I think we were remarking over there with respect. So this was not an insult to you. I'm sensing that it was taken personally to this board, and it was not meant for that. This group of neighbors have not gotten a fair shot. They have not gotten a fair shake to be heard. And it all began back in March when the pandemic hit. But just this evening, this is the first time, I think I'm the first person who's been able to speak publicly, and it's been, I think, was it recessed and postponed or continued and things of that nature. So they have been waiting patiently for several months to speak on this subject, and tonight's the first night. So, and we were just commenting earlier that Mr. Panos is already addressing parking issues and other questions from the board. When this is a public hearing where the public is to be heard, and the public still hasn't been heard, yet this board is fielding direct questions and issues that they have about things on the plan or what's been presented to them when the public has not been heard, and this is a public hearing. So I think it's best to hear from the public before you start negotiating with the attorney for the developer on specifics when the public has not been heard at a public hearing, which they're entitled to. Thank you.
Just have a quick question. There are a couple of points I'd like to respond to. Would you like me to reserve them for the end of the public comment? Okay, that's fine.
Anybody else that would like to speak? Now's the time.
Please be patient with me. I'm not used to public speaking. Good evening, Madam Chairperson and zoning board members. My name is Donna Klein, and I reside at 35 Warren Street here in Peabody. I am here to voice my opposition to certain aspects of the Endicott Street project, but not to the entire project. I, as well as a majority of the neighborhood, agree that the structure that presently exists is an eyesore, as is the empty former school administration building, also located on Endicott Street. I am not an abutter to this property. However, because Warren Street is located smack between Central and Endicott Street, my street receives a large volume of traffic. I strongly feel this is not an issue for only abutters, but an issue to those who travel Lowell, Endicott, and Central Streets daily, and to those who reside on the side streets as well. As reported in the Salem News in July of 2020, with regards to a traffic study performed in December of 2019, 65 crashes were recorded at the intersection of King, Lowell, and Endicott Streets over a 5-year span. This did exceed the statewide and Highway Division District 4 crash rates. Wilson Square, located at the other end of Endicott Street, has also been a difficult intersection for drivers to navigate. This location has certainly seen its fair share of accidents as well. With the King Street project being approved for 133 units, the former Red Cross building being approved for between 8 and 10 units, and now the Endicott Street project being proposed for 68 units, this potentially means 211 new residences will be constructed within a half-mile radius. My understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that in the future, 70 Endicott Street is going to be proposed to become housing as well. My question is this: how much traffic can one small neighborhood withstand? My concern is also for the safety of the elderly and the children who live within this area. My second issue is the architecture of the structure. From what I have seen online, in my eyes, it certainly does not conform with the homes on Endicott Street. And lastly, my third concern is this. I understand the developer, Mr. Tedesco, did meet with the abutters of the property to try to compromise on the number of units to be built. Unfortunately, both parties could not come to an agreement. However, here's my question. If Mr. Tedesco truly wanted to gain the support and approval of the abutters, why then, when filing for the 40B, did he request 68 units, knowing the abutters weren't pleased with his initial request of 36? In closing, I'd like to thank you for allowing me to voice my opinion on this project, and I hope you'll seriously, truly, seriously consider what I've had to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Good evening. My name is Steve Klein, and I reside at 35 Warren Street. My family has lived in this neighborhood for over 100 years. I am in opposition to the proposed development of 4042 Endicott Street in its present form. The construction of a 5- to 6-story building in the middle of single and two-family homes can only be described as ludicrous. The total parcel consists of only 31,344 square feet, and their intention is to build on the entire site, less a 20-foot wide strip on the Endicott Street frontage. The proposed structure would dwarf all existing residences, totally deviating the existing character of the neighborhood, and more importantly, completely destroying the quality of life for the current residents. I could continue on a myriad of problems connected with this proposal, but due to time constraints, I will only touch on 3 this evening, and I will be back for the others. Number 1, parking. During a previous meeting, the engineers for Tedesco Limited stated there would be 88, now I guess 93 parking spaces within the property. They further stated any overflow of vehicles would be able to utilize on-street parking on Etiquette Street or adjacent side streets. This statement is erroneous. There are approximately 12 parking spaces in front of 4042 Endicott. The driveway for entrance and egress, plus the necessary line of sight for safety, will take up at least 6 of those 12 spaces. The remaining spaces will have to be posted no parking so as to create parking for emergency vehicles, as stated in a memo from the Department of Community and Development dated February 2020. That takes care of your questions, because there will be no parking in front of the building. You don't have to worry about the sidewalk, but all the other vehicles have to park on the sidewalk, because if they don't, 2 vehicles can't go by each other on Etiquette Street. The only adjacent side streets are dead-end lanes with insufficient space for on-street parking. The reality is the developer has insufficient parking on the site for the proposed 68 units with originally 88, I guess now 93 spaces. Obviously, anybody knows that won't be enough for 68 units consisting of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments. And there will be 0 parking available for visitors, vendors, repairmen, or deliveries. Number 2, traffic concerns. Again, during a previous meeting, the engineers for Tedesco Limited stated that depending on the time of day, this project would add only 10 to 20 additional daily trips from the site. At that time, Committeeman Mr. Osborne questioned I'm not good at this. How would 68 units generate only 10 to 20 trips per day? The Tedesco engineers explained that they had used averages to come up with their estimates. Again, the reality is, in the last 60 years, the present buildings have generated no more than a dozen vehicle trips on any given day. The reality, again, using the engineers' figures, the proposed development would produce 350 additional daily trips, adding to an already overburdened section of the city. Add to this the new traffic that will be produced by the 133 units at the J.B. Thomas site, and you will have total gridlock. Number 3, and something nobody has mentioned previously, the rear egress and adjacent city-owned open space. To the rear of the proposed site is another unique situation. The entire area consists of open property which is owned by the city of Peabody. The proposed site plan shows that there is a 15-foot wide right-of-way through the area deemed by the deed of one of the properties on Etiquette Street, which I have never seen. The Department of Community Planning and Development has already stated in a memo from February 2020 that access across public property should be verified by the city solicitor. The city should also determine if the access easement will interfere with future development of the city-owned Berry Street property. It is also my understanding that the easement only allows for conveyance over the city-owned property so as to allow normal daily business at the Etiquette Street site. I don't know what it was, factories. I don't know if that constitutes as an egress from apartment buildings at night, on weekends, whatever. There are also related questions concerning how the right-of-way will be fenced in, who will maintain the right-of-way, snow removal and upkeep, In addition, there are also questions regarding insurance and how to protect the overall integrity of all the city-owned property. The right-of-way also travels via a Peabody Public School parking lot. The school department has requested safety for vehicles accessing their property, along with vehicles and pedestrians using the right-of-way. Also, there is a serious safety question raised in that the right-of-way is only 15 feet wide. The Peabody Fire Department requires a 24-foot wide right-of-way for their equipment. This will leave the proposed development with a 6-story structure on the Berry Street side and no way to get their fire apparatus to the location. I believe all the questions concerning the city-owned property and the right-of-way be brought to the attention of the city solicitor's office. This way, they can appear before the board at a future hearing to answer questions by the board and the general public. Everyone agrees that the present structures need to be replaced, but this monstrosity is not the answer. The mayor's office has already issued a letter in opposition. The Office of Planning and Community Development has also already issued a letter of opposition. 90% of the neighborhood is in opposition to the present proposal. Last year, when the City Council granted Tedesco Limited a special permit for the site, the neighborhood, the abutters, took the extreme measure to sue the City Council and Tedesco due to questionable procedures. Before the suit could be adjudicated, Tedesco gave up his special permit. Less than 6 months later, Tedesco, in a show of very questionable business ethics, went ahead and applied for the 40B. In its present form, I am requesting that this proposal as offered be denied. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else at this point in time?
My name is John Hurley. I live at 52 Warren Street, and I'm not as prepared as everybody else. I came to hear what was going to go on with this building. And as it is, there's too much traffic on Warren Street. My concern is, where are they going to enter and exit this building? Is it going to be on the Warren Street side, the Endicott Street side? I live right on Warren Street. My bedroom is on Warren Street. I hear motorcycles, putt-putt cars, you name it, 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. I can't even open my front windows. There's so much traffic on Warren Street. I don't believe that that building should stay there, that's there now, but something way more appropriate for the neighborhood that looks good, feels good, and that everybody is in agreement with. I just bought this place just a few years ago, and I've been following how this is going. I don't like the way this has been going. I think the community needs to be able to say a lot more than they have. And due to the COVID thing, it's been difficult. Everybody's done their best. But we're at a place now where we can talk about it, and I think that that's what should happen. I am in complete disagreement with the project the way it is now. I want something better for the neighborhood. The traffic right now is ridiculous. And I agree with this gentleman who's done all the numbers, that there are too many cars. There isn't an available parking spot on Warren Street right now. They're parking on my sidewalk and making a mud puddle. What are you going to do? People want to protect their cars, the street's too narrow, and then we're going to do this? Just my opinion.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Kim Seberg. I live at 4 Parkview Lane, and I kind of agree with all my neighbors prior, so I just wanted to add a couple of things. My street is proposed is going to be across the street from the entrance to the building, and it's already a very narrow place, and from what we hear, this is where extra parking would go, and it's tough for the neighbors right now to park on that street. And the other thing I would bring up is that every time we've kind of brought up any kind of opposition or just to try to talk to Mr. Tedesco, we've been threatened with the 40B. And I think that the 40B is a law that the state made to kind of help with affordable housing, but it has become a veil used by developers to kind of threaten communities and cities to go along with them under the veil of, ooh, 40B, affordable housing, you're doing something wrong if you don't approve it. So I think that, like everybody has said, we want something done there. We just wanted to have a little bit more of a voice. This place would be way out of character for that neighborhood. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Patricia Rennick, and I live at 49 Endicott Street, and I am an abutter, and been trying to stay in touch with everybody since this has been going on, but I'm very, very distraught over it because it's absolutely going to change the quality of my life. The height of it is going to take away all your night skies, your stars, all your sunlight. We did try to have a meeting with them, like she said, to try to work on something. We were all willing to compromise what we wanted and what he wanted, because some of us, I mean, I know that it's not feasible for him to build just a few units. So we weren't asking for that. We were just asking for something that would fit in the neighborhood. Now, I've listened to many of your ZBA meetings. I listened to one about a garage that was only a few feet too tall or a few feet too close to the street, and you denied it because it wasn't what you said was consistent with what should be in that neighborhood. Well, this is absolutely what doesn't belong in our neighborhood. I've lived here for almost 40 years. I purchased in an R1A area, as did all my other neighbors. Some of them have been there for generations. A lot of them are brand new. The one right next door didn't even know about this. He bought the property that Tedesco bought. So again, he's already made a profit because he bought that house next to the two factories and resold it. So he's already got a profit in his pocket. And those neighbors didn't know about it either. And none of us, because the pandemic was going on, really got to voice our opinion that much. And we really are very, very heartbroken that we've paid taxes all these years. We've raised our families in Peabody. The safety isn't there. The quality of life isn't there. Clearly, you put 6 to 8 more families in a neighborhood. Anytime you put a big crowd together, whether it's families living there or even if you go to a wedding with 6 to 8 families, there's a lot more going on and a lot more commotion. We just want something that will be consistent in the neighborhood, safe for our children and our grandchildren, and something that we can still sit out on our front porches and enjoy the sky and not listening to all the commotion going on and not have all the, riffraff. Not that every place doesn't have it, but 6 to 8 more units would be a lot. I mean, thought when he took off the top floor, I thought that was going to be good in my mind. I mean, a lot of the other neighbors wanted even more, but I thought that was, a start. As Ann said, which is what I said to her, we really believed he was taking off one whole floor of units and keeping the nice, aesthetic look of the building. And that's what everybody wants. I myself tried to build my house taller and to put an addition on my house because I have so many grandchildren now, and I was told no. That was not what was allowed in that neighborhood. I was told I had to make my addition an L shape because I had to have so much open space on my property. I was told I had to have my prints redone because I was 2 feet too tall. And I did that because to me, that's what's right. That's what I bought in that neighborhood. Those were the rules in those neighborhood, and I abided by them. And I'm just hoping, even though he can do more, I want him to do more. I want him to have something nice. I want him to make a profit. I want the property to look beautiful. Just want to be able to maintain the whole neighborhood and our way of life, because we're a very close neighborhood. We walk around, we talk to each other, we help each other, we shovel for each other, we move cars to make it more convenient, and we just want to have that stay like that. And I'm not going to repeat all the other things that everybody else said, because last meeting you said, please don't sit here and go into all the same things. So even though I agree with everybody else, I'm not going to get into all the other details, but please consider that when you do decide what you're going to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else that would like to speak for or against? Say anything at all? Okay, Attorney Panos? Did you want to say anything tonight?
Yes, Jason Panos for the record, practicing law at 246 Andover Street, Peabody, Massachusetts. Just some very broad, comments. I mean, we heard a lot of testimony referring to traffic studies that were done in Department of Community Development memos, which were drafted well before this application was ever submitted to this board. I just want to make the point that the one thing that's before this board right now is not what was submitted in 2019, has nothing to do with the special permit application that was before the City Council under a totally different context, applying totally different zoning ordinance and set of legal structure. What's before this board is the application which was submitted on March 26th, 2021, with a traffic study that was provided, a 21E, and all of the other reports and studies required of the Zoning Board of Appeals and its rules and regulations governing comprehensive permit applications. That data, those materials, were completely, exhaustively, and thoroughly reviewed by through the city's and ZBA's peer review consultants, which were presented tonight. We will, within 10 days, by the 29th, respond in writing. But I can sit here and tell you, or stand here and tell you, that nothing in that peer review indicates a reduction in density. Nothing. There is not one thing that came out of any memo from Ty and Bond, Weston and Sampson, Horsley Witten, or World Tech that would indicate that a condition cannot remedy anything that would require a density reduction. And we will drive that point home through our written response. And that is what we are legally obligated here today to show you. I have always maintained, and I'll maintain again, in this application currently before the board, that we talk about density when peer review and your technical reviews indicate we should exhaustively talk about density. We're not there, and we won't be there. We will make concessions. We will make accommodations. We will make this plan better. We already started to do so. But right now, there's nothing in the technical data and review indicating a density reduction is appropriate. And we will maintain that position and hopefully convince you that that is the appropriate position. That's all I really have to say at the time,
Okay.
unless there are any questions.
Just respectfully, Attorney Panos, is that I agree, nothing we've received so far has expressly said density as an issue. But I seem to be the one that always comes back to the parking for some reason on these things. But I do believe that the parking space issue with the request for a 99 minimum plus visitor spots. I do believe that dovetails into it. So I just want to make sure that we, as a board, are on the record saying that we do believe there's, at least I believe, based upon that, we can dovetail into it, even though there's nothing expressly that says we as a city, whether it's Mr. Paul at Community Development, whoever it is, says something different. I do think at least dovetails in, and that's with all due respect, of course.
Of course, and it's taken that way. I have no issue with constructive comments that help make a development proposal better. I have never had issue with that, and more times than not, recommendations and this peer review back and forth, particularly in discussions with the board, result in a better project. I have no qualms about that. I stand here with confidence to suggest that a project that we have proposed and a project that ultimately gets approved is a better project. Parking is totally part of that. We have already made parking accommodation to the plan. You have not seen the full plan yet, the full plan revisions pursuant to that review, and you will. You will within the next week and a half. But again, I have every confidence that the peer review, the technical review that Mr. Paulitz has led will result in a better project and will result in concessions that will cost the developer money. We already suggested right out of the gate in our application, in the application for site approval, improvements to Farnham Park. We would like to see the neighborhood and the green space and open space become an area around this development and around the neighborhood be utilized for people who are going to live there. You know, I would make another point, something that really markedly distinguishes this from the special permit development that was proposed. You know, the guidelines require us to have 10% set aside for 3 bedrooms. If I could wave a magic wand and set that aside and say, we're not doing 3 bedrooms because we think that that is not appropriate for the community, I would. And I've had that conversation with DHCD, I've had it with Mass Housing. We can't. I'd love to, but we can't. Those are the rules that we have to live under. We don't have that, we have that flexibility on a special permit application or an application before the planning board. We don't here. So we're subject to 25% affordability restriction as opposed to 15% under inclusionary zoning, which, by the way, to Stacy Bernson's memo, it's 80%, Mr. Osborne, 80% at HUD area median income in the city's own zoning ordinance, section 6.11, I believe. So we conform to not only the housing production plan that was proposed, we conform to the zoning ordinance, and we exceed that with 25% affordable set aside rather than the 15% that would be required, because we're required to. That's what 40B requires of us. In any event, I don't want to, we've taken up a lot of time, and you've had a full and fair public discussion, and I suspect that will continue in your subsequent hearings. So I have nothing more to add to that except the broad context of what's before the board. And I'm happy to entertain any further questions or comments.
Just through the chair, if I could. Through the chair, if I could, and I understand what you're saying, Jason, but the density issue is an issue, whether it's in the issue of us, or just because you have peer review and technically there's nothing in there, that doesn't mean that's the only thing we take into consideration when we're determining whether this is a good project or not. Maybe that's your opinion. Maybe members of the board, I know I do, have a different opinion. Okay? So, I mean, when there's if we can't work it out, there's always a way to work it out. Let's face it, you know, no one wants to go that route. But to say that you're not even going to consider it because there's nothing technically that says that we have to, well, that bothers me a little bit. This is supposed to be an effort. This is a mediation between you and us. Let's work together. I've got my little handbook too, and I'm glad when I bring it, I'm going to dispute some of the things. I just wish I had it tonight, but I don't. Because you're going to find out that there's things in that handbook that you haven't read, that you've probably read, but you choose not to paraphrase. And I'm going to paraphrase those parts that you choose not to. So I don't want to do it adversarially. That's not the intention of 40B. The intention of 40B is to work together. All right? But when you sit up there and stonewall and say, you know, cross your arms and say, no, there's nothing technically that says we have to do that, we're not going to. If that's the position you want to take, then so be it. Thank you.
I would take issue with that characterization. I stand behind what I said, that through the peer review and through the discussions with this board, and this is the third 40B we've been through together, there is a lot of back and forth, and I stand by what I said, that the application that we present at the beginning and the resulting decision approving those applications is oftentimes a markedly different, in my opinion, and I think in the opinion of the board, results in a markedly different project development. That's all I'm suggesting, and it results in that back and forth. But if you don't have the peer review and the technical review that support the basis for your ultimate decision, then you have speculation and conjecture. And I'm not in the speculation and conjecture that maybe you can handle this by density, maybe you can handle this by flood mitigation, et cetera, you can go down the list. What I'm suggesting is we rely on the peer review as you do, because it is a technical review and analysis, and either we have enough parking within the context of what the law says is appropriate, what the context of project eligibility indicates is appropriate, and of course what the neighborhood characteristics indicate are appropriate, given the hard data that we look at, that we vet. I don't want a peer review process that doesn't look at this application top to front, bottom, sideways, shake the box, figure out what comes out. I want peer review because we pay for it. We cut a check to the city for well over 20 grand to pay for peer review. I want to get the bang for the buck and make sure that another set of eyes looks at this carefully, as they have, and tells us, well, we think you might have missed this, or we think that you should address this more carefully. So we go back to the drawing board, which is why it takes us, when did we open this hearing? In May? Which is why it takes us several months to look at this carefully and consider it. That's why we ask for the continuances. We don't sit on our hands and you know, ignore what Will Pollitt and DPS and the board suggests. We consider them carefully, and we make accommodations where we can make accommodations, and we bend over backwards oftentimes doing it. So I believe that this development will be no different than the others, that the resulting development will be much better than what we proposed initially in the application as a result of that peer review. Thank you.
Attorney Panos, Councilor Manning, I believe you have something to add?
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. The attorney, Attorney Panos, mentions private companies that he commissioned. Private companies don't have a say in density. This board does. This board represents the neighborhood, represents the city. They say when they want to talk about density. They say when they want to talk about certain issues. He's really, in my opinion, acting like a dictator up here, telling the board what they should do, when they should do it, what they should hear, and how they should hear it. I'd want to hear from a private company that I commissioned to support my project too. But there's a couple things missing here tonight that I want to point out. Is there's nobody here to speak in support of this project, not one person. Meetings that I go to, that usually sways public opinion. When public is in support of something or against something, there's not one person here supporting this project. Just the attorney dictating to this board how things should run. Density is an issue. Councilor Osborne is right. This board should talk about density and anything else they want, anytime they want, and negotiate a fair project for this neighborhood. There's also no public documents here tonight. Mr. Panos brought a handbook. I'd take that as an insult. Again, I'm speaking for myself. You're waving a handbook at a board. Did you bring your handbook? But there's no public documents.
Let's keep this.
There's no public documents here.
Let's keep this pertinent, please. We're really not here for your opinions of other people, please.
I've been told that I need to choose my words wisely. I'll take that as the second time tonight. Yet the attorney for this developer is really running roughshod, in my opinion, over this process. That is my opinion. And it's First Amendment right. This is a public hearing, and I've shared my thoughts. And as I was saying, too, I'll close it. There is no public access to the plan that's before the public tonight to review. It's not here for anyone to review. Thank you.
One second. This is a public hearing. This is not an attack on each other. I understand, but we're not here. We are not school teachers here. All right? We are not school teachers here to scold people. We're not a principal. Let's keep it without the attacks, or we have the right to suspend and continue this hearing to the next one, and then everyone can make their commentary then. So let's just keep it pertinent. This is not an attack.
I think at this point, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to suspend the rest of this meeting until October 18th, when we will resume. All public can come. Anyone on Endicott Street, Warren Street, let everybody know. If they don't read the papers, if they don't get notices, please let everybody know. October 18th, we can come back and we can listen again. But at this point, I need a motion to continue.
Before we continue through the chair, if I could.
Go ahead.
I'm just a request to Carla. I don't see many responses from department heads. Are they coming in slow? Are they coming in at all? Or have we requested? I haven't seen. Do we have anything from police, fire, and things like that? I know we got the file on thing, but I haven't seen much. Okay. All right. Okay. I just want to make sure that we get them. That's all. Thank you.
Motion to continue this for further hearing and commentary to October 18th.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you very much. We're now going to continue to our regularly scheduled meeting. That would be 68 Prospect Street. Attorney Kelty. Planning Board and Conservation correspondence. Do we have that somewhere? Right. This one? I need a motion to accept Planning Board and Conservation correspondence.
Motion to accept the correspondence.
Second.
Favor? Any opposed? Okay. Attorney Kelty.
Thank you. My name is John Kelty. I'm an attorney. I have offices at 40 Lowell Street, Peabody, Massachusetts, and I appear this evening for 68 Prospect Street, LLC, whose manager is Kevin Hoyle. Kevin is originally a Peabody resident. He is an experienced developer and builder. He has built here in Peabody a number of
single-family homes, plus he was the developer for Jill's Way, and he has been able to build in Ipswich, Hamilton, Beverly Farms, and Revere, where he is currently doing multi-families. This matter was originally before the board on July 19th. July 19th, we asked that the matter be continued to enable us to begin down the path of site plan review and to have some results from any filing with the Conservation Commission. We have filed for site plan review. We are in our appeal, we are in our peer review period. We originally were responding to an August 31st peer review. We responded on 9/9. We don't have that back yet, but we expect that we will in the relatively near future, and that'll take us back to the planning board, hopefully for a closeout of our engineering and the peer review, traffic engineering, and stormwater management, et cetera. We are proposing on this facility a 32 townhouse homes, which would be located in 5 buildings. Each of them would not exceed 2 bedrooms. Each of them, in fact, is 2 bedrooms. The project is proposing to make use of our existing curb cut with some restructuring of that. Each unit is to have a 1-car garage and exclusive use driveways. The project proposes to also have 20 uncovered parking spaces which are located in the middle between 4 of the 5 buildings proposed. We are, as I've stated, we are in the process of having those plans reviewed. We've been to the Conservation Commission where we received a negative determination of applicability, provided we build in accordance with the plan that we have filed with Construction Review, Planning Board, et cetera. We are originally advertised for the Board of Appeals that we required a left, right, and rear yard variance. We were asking for variances to allow decks to protrude on the easterly side, the northerly side of the premises, which is the Emery Street side of the premises. Those decks would have protruded into the side yard. We have had at least 2 meetings, and I think actually 3 meetings with our Emery Street neighbors. Those were very, I think, amicable. We were able to address concerns that the neighbors had. I have submitted to you a proposed set of conditions. We are now down to requesting 2 variances. And where we advertised 12, we're actually asking for a 17-foot rear yard and a 17-foot right side yard. Those show on a plan that is dated, it's an Eastern Land Survey plan. I circled the 2 variances that we seek on that. That's a Eastern Land Survey site development plan, Ashley Court, dated April 6, 21, and revised September 3rd, 2021. So if there were the need for a plan to be addressed in our variance request, we would respectfully request that that be the referenced plan, in as much as it shows our 2 17-foot side yard, right side yard and our rear side yard. We have also suggested that if the board sees fit to place conditions on the variance, if we're lucky enough to have this approved, we would request that condition be that the developer shall install a 7 8-foot-high fence along the northerly boundary of the property at the property line of Emery Street abutters. The fence shall be vinyl and of a gray coloring. And then we also offered to install shrubs, trees, and landscaping in accordance with the general note plan prepared by Joseph Betancourt, AIA. That was also attached. And what that shows is that we are going to pull our fence actually off of the property line, and then we're offering to provide landscape on the abutter side of the fence. What that will do is the fence serves to provide a screening and some relief from sound, but the trees are intended to, we are going to remove some trees that are located on our property. We've also said that if there are unhealthy trees that are to be removed on our neighbor's property, we would do that. We've not identified any that need to be removed. And our plantings, as shown on that general notes plan, what it shows is strips of trees and shrubs that would be planted to break up the visual impact of the fence. So when I'm sitting in my yard, I would see the fence, which would be located some 5 to 7 feet off of the property line, and then on our property, before you get to the neighbor's property, there would be sections of trees that are being offered to break up that continuous fence. We would also expect and offer that we would also accept a condition that says that we must seek and obtain approvals of our site plan review and eventually a special permit from the City Council. As you may recall, or as you may be aware, this particular parcel of land is located in a residential overlay district that is available to us, and we will be applying for a special permit from the City Council. However, their Rule 17, Section 17 of their rules and regulations suggests that we need to be through other processes before we are approved by the ZBA, before we are approved for a special permit and can apply for a special permit from the City Council. So it is our expectation that if we are fortunate enough to obtain a variance tonight, with that and site plan approval in hand, we will be in a position to seek special permit from the City Council. With me this evening is Kevin Hoyle, the principal, and Joe Betancourt, who is our architect and has done a very good job of being in communication with our neighbors. We have been able to communicate with them both in person and through email. So I'm happy to say that I believe that we have pursued and succeeded in a very transparent, at least with regard to our neighbors and the ward councilor. We've participated in a very transparent process, and we are hopeful that the board would grant us a right side yard of 17 feet and a rear yard of 17 feet. Thank you.
Questions, comments by the board?
Through the chair.
Yes.
So one of my questions you just answered, Attorney Kelty, just clarification on the modification of the relief being sought. My other question was about the proposed screening. I understand it's a 7-foot vinyl fence, solid fence that would be 5 to 6 feet into your property, on your property, and then beyond that, the neighbors to your north would see greenery, some kind of shrubbery that's going to be planted along the fence line on your property, but that's something that they would see that would break up the fence. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Now, have you discussed, what types of plantings in the height of those plantings? I understand it's a 7-foot fence. The plantings, we're not talking Charlie Brown trees here. What are we talking about? Because I think if we are to make a motion to approve this after public comment, I think we want to condition it to some specificity in terms of height at least, and amount of shrubbery that is proposed.
Yeah, we did discuss the fact that it would be 5 to 7 feet from the existing stone wall, which is the property line. So there'd be stone wall, break our fence, and then in front of our fence, the shrubbery. I believe that we have spoken mostly about arborvitae. Wait. 5 feet, thereabout. Jen.
Excuse me. Attorney Kelty, what are you doing?
I'm sorry. I was trying to speak with Joe Betancourt, and but Janice, one of our neighbors, is answering the question. So to answer your question, no, we haven't determined exactly what height or the planting schedule, but we could perhaps even do that this evening.
Okay, I'd be interested, and it sounded like from the audience a 5-foot arborvitae, so somewhat mature size tree as opposed to little baby.
Spindling, yes.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Potted plants.
Thanks.
From the board. Anybody to speak in favor? In favor. Name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. I'm Janice McDonough. My husband and I have lived at 8 Emery Street for 45 years, and we abut the project. Our experience with the 68 Prospect Street team has been positive and respectful. Specifically, developer Kevin Hoyle, architect Joe Betancourt, and attorney Jack Kelty. We have also received guidance and support from our counselor, Ed Charest. To all of them, we say thank you and are very grateful. And it's how city government should work.
Thank you from me also.
I mean, really and truly, it was really quite lovely. Now, we've hammered out many issues over the past months. Jack mentioned some of them: fencing, landscaping, decks, etc. Now, the key issue here is drainage. We live in a very wet area, and the team has what appears to be a very comprehensive plan to address this drainage issue, and we hope it works. Generally, there are 2 parts of the plan: water collection tanks, and I'm not using the specific engineering terms, but bear with me if you will. Water collection tanks in the middle of the project, which will capture most of the water, in a swale that runs along the Emery Street border that will drain into a retention pond. It sounds good. We hope it works. However, we are not engineers, and we look to the City of Peabody for its peer review and expertise in this issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, I'll try to be brief. My name is Solange Leitonen. I'm at 6 Emery Street. I've been here for 44 years. Mr. Hoyle and his team, including our very engaged city councilor, Mr. Charest, have been very generous in their time, their patience, and their expertise in guiding us through providing extensive explanations of their proposed townhouse project. As Mrs. McDonough just described in expressing our concerns over the drainage, we hope that with the necessary reviews, we will continue to be well-served, and the resulting impact of this project will be as minimal as possible. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Anybody else to speak in favor? Anybody to speak in opposition? Well, that was very refreshing. Thank you very much, everybody. I need a motion then to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing.
We should be,
All right, I'll make a motion to approve this proposal with the condition that the applicant gain approval from the planning board, the city council, and the conservation, and also that the application is only asking for relief to the right and rear yard setbacks of 17 feet and not 12. And also that there will be a 7-foot vinyl fence placed on the applicant's property, and also the landscaping screening in front of the fence on the applicant's property, consisting of 5 to 7 foot arborvitae trees.
Second.
Roll call.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, this petition has been approved unanimously.
Thank you very much.
You are welcome. Next, we have number 4, David Anastasi, excuse me? Yeah. So we're now doing number 4. That would be 83 Pine Street. We're doing number 4. Barry is in the men's room. Let's just, yeah, just wait 1 second. We already, yeah. I know.
Like it's a chin strap.
And I'm not good, I'm not. You're on.
Okay, notice is hereby given that the Board of Appeals of the City of Peabody will hold a public hearing Monday, September 20th, 7 p.m. at the Wigan Auditorium, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, on the application of David Anastasi for a variance from the provision of the zoning ordinance 2019 as amended sections 1151C and 1155A5, signs in a BN district, as it applies to the premises known as 83 Pine Street, Peabody, map 45, lot 500T. Petitioner seeks a variance to erect 3 signs equaling 154 square feet, where 1 is allowed, a maximum of 60 square feet. Property is located in our 4 zoning district. The application and plan are available to the public and can be viewed by contacting Carla McGrath at carla.mcgrath@peabodymass.gov or 978-538-5792 in advance and prior to the public hearing. The agenda for this meeting is posted on the City of Peabody website.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is David Anastasi. I am the Chief Financial Officer and Officer for Covenant Christian Academy, who is the majority owner, along with North Shore Education Consortium of West Peabody Office Park, who is the legal owner of this property. Our desire is to remove the existing sign, which I apologize, I wish I had the dimensions on now. My guess would be is very close to the 60 square foot allowable in this zoning, and erect the signs that you see on the plan, which are 3 instead of 1. The main purpose or the reason that there are 3, I wish it was just 1 financially. But the reason there's 3 is if you know this area, Pine Street runs horizontal to the property, and so if you're driving down Pine Street, one sign that sits horizontally to Pine Street actually looks straight at the neighbor's house, and so you wouldn't even see the sign until you were next to it, which of course is far too late, right? And so that's the reason that there are three. One to display Covenant Christian Academy, and then North Shore, which is sort of forward-facing. And then the other two signs, I know it doesn't depict it on this, and I apologize for that, but they sit more at an angle to that main sign so that they are visible to oncoming traffic, if that makes sense. Not sideways to form a U shape, but just diagonal. And the purpose for those sideways signs, as you see on the plan, is really to promote and make aware the seven tenants, the 7 businesses that are there. Children's Piazza, dance studio, karate studio, a medical systems company that is there. So to give them, just to let people know an awareness that that's where they're at. Right now, the sign just says, and it sits sideways, it just says 83 Pine Street. It's an old, very faded, industrial-looking bluish sign. The entire building, with the exception of the new Performing Arts Center that we just built, the entire building is brick. And then the Performing Arts Center that was built has like a grayish siding, if that makes sense. And so what we tried to do with this signage from a visual standpoint was tie the brick together and just used some of the colors that are already existing to the property. The signage is not illuminated in any way. It's not necessary, and also I think that would be really disruptive for our neighbors right across the street. So it's just a very traditional brick signage. In terms of the size, I guess I just do want to say we're not married to anything in terms of the size. The only thing that we want to do is make sure that the signs for our tenants are big enough that oncoming cars and people that want to visit our tenants can read it. So when we contracted with Metro Sign, that was sort of our marching instructions to them was we don't want something illuminated, we don't want something big and gaudy, we want it to tie in to what's already here, and we just want it big enough so that people can see the tenants that are in our space to promote their business. So that's what we're asking for. And yeah.
I just have one question, just
Sure.
for point of interest. So I'm very familiar with this. I walk it almost every day.
Okay.
So is the sign going in that grassy area in between the enter and exit?
Yeah, exactly.
Right there?
That island.
Yep.
Yeah, we would remove the existing sign
And put that there?
and put that one in there. And my sense would be we would even bring it a little bit further back off of the road. It doesn't need to be as close as the sign is to the road now, so we'd probably pull it a little bit back too, but that's where it would go.
Well, you've done a very nice job with everything so far. I've watched
Thank
the
you.
building of that Performing Arts Center, and
Thank
I
you.
do think this sign is something necessary. So, are you done?
Yes.
Any questions by the board? Anybody in the audience to speak for or against? Hearing none, the matter is before the board.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? You're approved. Now going on to number 5.
Notice is hereby given that the Board of Appeals of the City of Peabody will hold a public hearing Monday, September 20th, 7 p.m. at Wigan Auditorium, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, on the application of Justin Adrian Laser for a variance from the provision of the zoning ordinance 2019 as amended section 7.2 as it applies to the premises known as 61 Catherine Drive, Peabody, map 3, lot 12. Petitioner seeks a variance to build an addition and porch which requires relief to the front yard setbacks where 25 feet is required and 17.4 feet is proposed. Property is located in R1 zoning district. The application and plan are available to the public and can be viewed by contacting Colin McGrath at colin.mcgrath@peabodymass.gov or 978-538-5792 in advance and prior to the public hearing. The agenda for this meeting is posted on the City of Peabody website.
Put it on, please. Press the button. There you go.
I'm Justin LeJour. This is my wife, Adrienne LeJour. We're the owners of 61 Catherine Drive. We're requesting relief off of our setback because we live on a corner lot, so we have two frontages to extend out another 8 feet. We currently have 2 young children. My wife grew up in Peabody, and we'd like to remain in Peabody. So at this point, that's why we're hoping to add a little bit more to the house.
Just explain, you have an existing deck,
Correct.
and it says proposed porch.
So, what we'd be doing is just extending the deck where it is in the back.
The addition stays the same height as your house?
Correct. Right now, the living area that it's going to go off of, it's going to have the same roof line as that.
Questions? Comments? Anybody in the audience to speak for or against? Hearing none, the matter's before the board.
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Motion to approve?
Roll call vote, please.
Yes.
Yes.
You're approved.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We are now on to number 6, which is number 6.
Notice is hereby given that the Board of Appeals of the City of Peabody will hold a public hearing Monday, September 20th, 7 p.m. at the Wigan Auditorium, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, on the application of P Motorsports Prop LP, care of Kerry Martin, for a sign variance from the provision of the zoning ordinance 2019 as amended sections 1154 as it applies to the premises known as 7 Centennial Drive, Peabody, map 91, lot 5. Petitioner seeks a variance to erect 2 wall signs equaling 104.2 square feet, where 2 are allowed at a maximum of 60 square feet. Property is located in an IP zoning district. The application and plan are available to the public and can be viewed by contacting Colin McGrath at colin.mcgrath@peabodymass.gov or 978-538-5792 in advance and prior to the public hearing. The agenda for this meeting is posted on the City of Peabody website.
Good evening. My name is Kerry Martin, Assistant Project Manager, North Point Construction Management, located at 22 Hampshire Drive, Hudson, New Hampshire. This is Bill Frisella, Project Manager. So North Point is the general contractor performing the interior renovation work at 7 Centennial Drive, which is the BMW Peabody Service Center. We've submitted this variance application on behalf of the owner for the replacement of 2 exterior wall signs. The sign ordinance in IP district states not to exceed 60 square feet. The proposed square footage is 104.2 square feet. I would say that there are existing signs there now. Sign number 1 is states it shows the BMW of Peabody logo with 2 medallions, and the sign number 2 shows service, so it's where the service, over the service drive with the logo. The approximate distance from the street to the building is about 200 feet, so it kind of turns and it's wooded at the street. The sign package that is proposed is the smallest by dimension that's allowed by BMW Peabody of BMW of North America, rather.
Could you just explain one more time what the signs say?
Sure. The first sign says BMW of Peabody,
Okay.
and that's the main building sign.
Yep.
And then the second
one says
sign says
service?
service. It's the service drive.
Questions, comments by this board? Anybody in the audience to speak in favor or against? Hearing none, the matter is before the board.
Motion to close the public hearing? Motion to approve?
Roll call vote, please.
Yes.
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 You are approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. we don't have to read it. A continued application for 0 Newbury Street. Attorney Kelty. Hope you're enjoying yourself.
Have we ever opened this and added the, read the ad? I don't think so. Yeah. Yeah. I would suggest we read it, yeah.
Okay, we'll read it again.
Notice is hereby given that the Board of Appeals of the City of Peabody will hold a public hearing Monday, July 19. Today's September 20th. At the Wigan Auditorium, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass. On the application of JDT Group LLC, care of Attorney John Kelty for a variance from the provision of the zoning ordinance 2019, as amended Section 7.2 and Section 10 as it applies to the premises known as 0 Newbury Street, Peabody, map 88, lot 7. Petitioner seeks a variance to construct a 6-story self-storage facility and requires relief to the front, where 50 feet is required and 35 feet is proposed, to the side, where 40 feet is required and 34 2-point feet is proposed, height where 40 feet is allowed and 69.11 feet is proposed, FAR where 1.0 is allowed and 2.02 is proposed. The property is located in a BR1 zoning district. The application and plan are available to the public and can be viewed by contacting Carl McGrath at carl.mcgrath@peabodymass.gov or 978-538-5792 in advance or prior to the public hearing. The agenda for this meeting is posted on the City of Peabody website.
Motion to accept Williams and okay.
Make a motion to accept the Williams and Sparagus and Attorney Panos memos and revised memos from Conservation and Planning Board. But does anyone have them? How can we accept? Oh, they are in there. Okay. Thought it was.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, those are accepted. Thank you.
Thank you, members of the board. My name is John Kelty. I'm an attorney, and I have offices at 40 Lowell Street, Peabody, Massachusetts. I appear on behalf of JDT Group LLC. They are the owners of the property known as 0 Newbury. This is a parcel of land that is accessed from Route 1 via a right-of-way strip, which is referred to as the strip. One of the communications that you have received and just accepted was a title memorandum on the strip, which lays out our rights in the strip and those of others. We have also provided you with a memorandum written by Williams and Sparagus, and we are appearing before the Conservation Commission at their next meeting to discuss whether that's at their next meeting, October meeting, to discuss whether anything needs to be filed with the Conservation Commission. Our memorandum says that the depression that is on the site, which has been created by, I believe, a graveling of the land in the 1950s, whether or not that depression rises to the level of requiring a further filing of a notice of intent with the Conservation Commission. It's our opinion that it's non-jurisdictional, but that it will remain to be seen as to whether the Conservation Commission agrees with us. We are here this evening. This is a parcel of land that was previously approved, and I have given you a copy in my application, a copy of a special permit that was granted to my clients for use of this premises as a marijuana facility for medical marijuana only. We have explored the possibilities with regard to going forward with that plan, have decided that we would not pursue the development of the land as a facility and a marijuana facility, and we're now seeking to adopt a by right use, which is personal storage facilities. There will be no outdoor storage. We are a by right use. However, given that depression on the land, we have had to situate our building in a fashion that we seek front yard variance of 35, where 50 is the allowed variance, a side yard of 34.2 feet, where the side yard is 40 feet, height of 69.11 feet, where the allowed upon height is 40 feet, and FAR of 2.02, where 1 is allowed, and those are the variances we seek. We are located in a BR1 zone, so our use is allowed by right. We are needing, because of the depression that shows on your plan to the rear of the property, we are forced to bring our building up front because we are restricted to the footprint of the building, in as much as we do not want to fill or otherwise deal with that depression in any manner, then we are seeking to go up. That's what the height variance is all about, rather than sprawling the facility in such a fashion that we could leave it at within the 40-foot height requirement. We are located between the on-ramp from Route 1 to 128. We also lie adjacent to the ramp that takes you from, that would be Route 1 south over to 128 north. So we're in the midst of those, and right in that apex between the two roadway layouts, we have this depression, which it is my opinion that, like many of these pits that are located up off of Route 1. They were graveled in the 1950s, some of them for use in the expansion of some of the runways at Logan. And in this instance, I think that some of the borrow from this depressed area was actually used right nearby on the creation of the ramps or for these particular ramps that are now constructed well after Route 1 was in place and well after 128 was in place. We are happy to answer questions that the board may have. We are going to be at the October meeting of the Conservation Commission. We have had a meeting with the Community Development Department and have tried to talk over the items that are in a memo that was presented to this board for the first meeting, the July 19th meeting. We have since met with Community Development Department, told them the direction that we are moving in, and have actually been able to we've been able to express to the Community Development Department that we will be back at such time as we are aware that this building can be built in the fashion that we're showing it. We'll finish all of our construction design and submit for site plan review. We did submit renderings of what the building is intended to look like. I have Rick Salvo here this evening from the Engineering Alliance, and Rick Bennett is here this evening on behalf of the principals, and we're happy to present boards if the board if this board feels fit. If that's not necessary, then Rick will keep them on the floor in the bag that they're in. And we're happy to answer any questions that the board may have. Thank you.
Through the chair, Attorney Kelty, I guess I think I understand the relief that's being sought as far as the front yard and side yard, setbacks go here because of the elevation change in the buildable area. But I guess I don't understand the hardship and need for a 6-story, 69-foot, height on this building, on the structure, and why it couldn't be closer to the 40 feet that's allowed, maybe take a story or two off, and you wouldn't need the relief for the height. So if you could maybe, extrapolate a little bit into the reasoning why you need the height and where the hardship is there.
The hardship that we pointed out in our application is the irregular shape of the lot lying between the two highway ramps and the presence of the depression on the site. In order to deal with the narrowness of the two highways coming together, and to stay away from the depression, then we have sought to go up rather than laterally, vertically, where we want to go up. So we're asking for the height variance in order to make up for the loss of use of the property, and it's in that corner where the depression is and where the two highways come together.
But just for further clarification, you still are going further in one direction or the other than would be allowed, which is the reason for one of the variances you're requesting. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Through the chair, in that same line is what Dan was talking about. Attorney Kelty, would the applicant be willing to consider dropping off 1 story, or perhaps 2, to bring it down to the 40? Presumably at that point it'd be like either 49 or 59 to bring it a little bit more in line. I think it's just because 70 just seems like it's so high.
I'm sorry, your very last statement, you said that what, the 6 stories makes it the 69 feet?
Right, so it's 6 stories, and an average story is about 11 feet. If you took off 1, it'd bring it from like 69 or so down to about 58, give or take. If you took off 2, it would bring it down to more like a 48. Is that, are either of those options something the applicant would consider to bring the height down a bit?
I believe, yes, it's something we can consider right now, but I would point out that the elevations of both of those highways are considerably higher than our grade where we're beginning construction. Both highways are some 25, well, the ramp on our left to our north is about 20 to 25 feet higher than our land. So in a way, the first 20 or 25 feet is not visible from the highways, but I do have a rendering, which, not a rendering, but kind of an aerial that demonstrates where these ramps are. And we believe that the Commonwealth's takings which were not self-imposed, nor was this graveling, they were not self-imposed hardships. So, but as to the elevation, that's more of a kind of an economic consideration. However, I think it is important to note that when we are 6 stories in this, at this particular grade, the finished floor elevation is 142 here, and these elevations are, this particular one is 160, 162.
What's the elevation at Route 1, though? Is it going to look massive from Route 1?
One is at an elevation just about equal to where we're proposing.
So it's going to look 70 feet from Route, so it's going to look like a 70-foot building from the Route 1 side, right?
To the extent that it could be seen, yes. We do have, buildings which screen us, which,
abandoned buildings.
is somewhat neither here nor there.
Right.
Yeah.
Through the chair, if I could, I mean, I understand what you're saying, Jack, with the elevation, but you're still asking us to improve a 70-foot building. There's going to be other things that are going to come before this board that the elevations aren't going to be the same type of elevation that you looked at. And all of a sudden, you approved one on Route 1. Well, it just seems too high to me. 70 feet is 70 feet. I mean, it's pretty high. That's almost double. I mean, that's not like it's, you're not asking for an extra floor. You're asking to double it up.
My clients would be more than willing to drop 10 feet to get to, we're asking for 70, we would go to 60.
How far back is it, Jack, from Route 1?
The distance from Route 1, Rick? This is Richard Salvo from the Engineering Alliance. 250? 250 feet off of Route 1.
What's the footage of that top floor? The top floor?
Footage of the floor itself?
If you were to take off that top floor, is that 10 feet or is that over 10 feet?
10 feet, right? Yeah, 10 feet.
You sure?
That's what he just told me.
You know that we have in the past stuck very closely to the height requirement. And we have made people take down a roof for 2 feet. So I think that's the concern right now, is you're way over 40. So I'm just clarifying.
However, we have not built and asked for forgiveness.
You are absolutely right. Thank God.
My team has suggested that if the board also were to grant a height variance, that if the board wanted to condition it, that it is specifically for use in conjunction with this storage facility, so that it wouldn't be a variance granted that could be converted to housing or some.
The problem is the height. Right now, the big problem is the height. So you can use it for, you know.
That's what I was trying to address, was saying that if you were to grant the height, then we would certainly agree to a condition that said it is specifically granted for storage facility, because it wouldn't be generating traffic other than what is generated from the use of these buildings, which is minimal.
I must be missing something, because I thought it said it is a storage facility.
It is, but I was just suggesting that you could specify that if the board were to grant height, then it would be specifically for storage and nothing else.
Can you knock it down a little more? Or can you think about it? I mean, do you want to come back next month? I know that's a I can get to 55. Now I'm 15 feet over in a hole. Do you want to go forward with it?
I'd like to go forward because I don't think anything changes with respect to the request for any of the other variances. If I take the month,
So let's just say that you know, like what I usually say, you're asking for the sun, the moon, and the stars. Let's just say that. So are you inclined to tell me that your clients cannot and will not build a 40-foot storage unit? They can't stick to the height requirement?
Yes, I can say that we would not build a storage facility that was 40 feet high. And I think that Attorney Sensabaugh was saying that, you know, economic feasibility, yes, that probably would take us to, at 40 feet, we wouldn't be back. I mean, we wouldn't probably pursue it in all likelihood. So in other words, if the board grants the series of variances but for the height, and then I'm stuck building it at 40 feet and let the chips fall where they may.
For the sake of it, do we remember when we approved the storage facility where Board of Books was? Did they stick to the height? What? Yeah. You didn't get height?
No, and we didn't ask for height because of in that instance, one of the things was we were converting the existing building and then adding a huge addition that was linear. So there was a number of units yielded based on the linear size of the building.
Attorney Kelty, do you recall if there was a variance sought for the floor area ratio in that case either?
I believe not in that case, because what's triggering the floor area ratio, we're not covering too much of the lot. It's the FAR, and the FAR is being triggered by the height, the number of stories.
I'm going to give you just my opinion. You sure you want to go forward tonight with this? Maybe you can reconstruct it, maybe move it forward a bit and get more out of it without going to the height?
One of the members had mentioned 50. If I got to 50, then I'd be forced to live with that.
So 50 feet, and it will be measured. Please tell those.
I understand.
It will be measured.
Rick will have to certify it when he, yes.
It will be certified with a laser measurement.
Yeah, I know the building commissioner is asking for height now at the time of the foundation certification.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so is there anyone to speak in favor or in opposition? Hearing none, the matter is before the board.
Motion to close the public hearing. And there'll be a motion to approve, except the height will be reduced down to 50 feet, which brings the FAR down to 1.73. And the additional conditions that the applicant will seek planning board and conservation approval. And additionally, there'll be a condition that this property will be used solely for storage purposes, for
perpetuity, I guess.
Yeah, various runs with it as a storage facility.
Roll call vote.
Sure, yes.
Yes, thank you for working that out. We now have.
Thank you.
We now have a little change. Ms. Peabody has to leave at this point. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So we have our 4. I just need to let everybody know that from this point on, you do need a unanimous vote. But it's okay. Now on to number 7, which is, number 7 is Donna O'Brien. Is Donna O'Brien here? Okay, here you go. Now, that's the time you've been waiting for.
Notice is hereby given that the Board of Appeals of the City of Peabody will hold a public hearing on Monday, September 20th at 7 p.m. at the Wigan Auditorium, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, on the application of Donna O'Brien, care of George Piperidis, for a variance from the provision of the zoning ordinance 2019 as amended Section 7.2, as it applies to the premises known as 188 Winona Street, Peabody, map 55, lot 38. Petitioner seeks a variance to build an addition and requires relief to the side yard setbacks where 20 feet is required and 10.3 feet is proposed. The property is located in an R1 zoning district. The application and plan are available to the public and can be viewed by contacting Carla McGrath at carla.mcgrath@peabodymass.gov or 978-538-5792 in advance and prior to the public hearing. The agenda for this meeting is posted on the City of Peabody website.
Good evening. My name is Michael Bazin. I'm from Bazin Construction Consulting and Design of Marblehead. I've been working with Donna to improve her home, and I'm helping her out designing a small addition to help a few conditions that she has over there. Number one, she has a very low first floor elevation, which periodically floods her garage. There's a lot of clay in the area, which I guess most of these areas do. Campanelli homes have no cellar, and not a lot of room for storage. She's also partially working from home and bringing in her aging mother, who's in a wheelchair, to try to live with her. And we'd like to add on to the front of the house, which would bring, she bought the house with an 11-foot 6 sideline on the right side, as per plan. You'll see it there. And the addition would be coming out toward the front, would bring the right sideline to 10-foot 3, so 15 inches closer to the right side. And the neighbor to the right, their yard is 8 feet higher than hers. So we're not going up any higher with the house. They can barely see, you know, from her, the neighbor's driveway is 8 feet higher than her yard. And we'd like to just put this addition on to give them a little bit more space. And in doing that, we want to fix her water situation. She's got huge amounts of water flooding her garage. And we want to dig that out and put in a draining system. The new addition and foundation would permit us to also do further excavation and put in a perforated drain and a dry well to eliminate some of that. We've addressed a little of it already, just is landscaping work. And she's going to have a landscape retaining wall on that side. So basically, just, we know it's a non-conforming lot, but she bought the house that way with the 11-foot 6. And we'd like to just bring it out. We're not going any higher with the elevation. It's just a ranch house. And we're requesting that, as per plan that you had seen there, that was drawn by architect Paul Lessard.
I made a mistake. So I went by this house. This isn't the house that they're doing all the work in already. That's before you.
No, well, it's the corner lot, you mean? Yeah. The corner lot we put on a modification to the bathroom in the back, which is a regular permit. That's all done. And then
Yep.
Dan Terenzino has been, overseeing that. That's all just about completed right now. We've let the yard open because we're letting the trucks go in because Donna has something unusual. She has a garage with a garage door in the front, a garage door in the back, and no driveway. So,
So that addition is going ahead in front of that garage?
pardon me?
Is that addition going to be part of the garage?
It's going to be added on, it's projecting out, correct.
Okay,
And-
because I rode by and it goes, I hope he hasn't already built this, because I saw it.
No, it's just a mess because we're bringing everything in. There's no driveway there, so we allow everybody to back in.
Because I could see right through to the backyard.
I said it's not, yeah. So we're bringing everything in to work in that area.
Okay, all right, okay, that explains it. Thank you.
Questions by the board? This board. Anybody in the audience to speak in favor?
Neighbors are here.
Oh, do you want to speak in favor, or you just want to raise your hands that you're in favor? You're all in favor? Okay, for the record, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 neighbors, 6 neighbors. 6 neighbors in favor.
And plus, we had a petition, we went around and got all the signatures.
Did you pass
from
that
the
in?
abutters. Yes.
Oh, it's in here. Okay, so that's great. Anybody in opposition? Well, this is your lucky night. Matter is before the board.
Motion to close the public hearing. Motion to approve.
Favor? Any opposed? You are all set.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
for all your patience, too, wow.
Thank you.
It was worth the wait.
Those are good friends to wait this long, I'll tell you.
Next one is number 9, which is really number 8. Joseph and Erica Stearns.
Notice is hereby given that the Board of Appeals of the City of Peabody will hold a public hearing Monday, September 20th, 7 p.m. at the Wigan Auditorium, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, on the application of Joseph and Erica Stearns for a variance from the provision of the zoning ordinance 2019 as amended Section 7.2 as it applies to the premises known as 37 Downing Road, Peabody, map 60, lot 39. Petitioner seeks a variance to build a deck and requires relief to the left side yard setbacks where 20 feet is required and 15.5 feet is proposed. The property is located in an R1B zoning district. The application and plan are available to the public and can be viewed by contacting Kyle McGrath at kyle.mcgrath@peabodymass.gov or 978-538-5792 in advance and prior to the public hearing. The agenda for this meeting is posted on the City of Peabody website.
Name and address for the record.
Sorry about that. My name is Joseph Stearns. This is my wife, Erica Stearns, and we reside at 37 Downing Road. We are both the homeowners. We are looking for the, here's what it is. We have a existing deck right now, as you can see on the plot plan. It is, we've owned the house about 10 years. It was built in '62. That deck was probably built in the late '60s. It is real bad right now. The boards are popping up. I've got pieces of metal done. I've almost replaced every stair. I have them all footed right now until we can get a new deck. So what we're doing is we're going to be tearing down that deck completely. We're not using any of it. All new footings. And what I just want to do is just, while we're replacing that deck, I just want to extend it down the house. It's not going any further to the yard than it already is. It's going to be the same exact distance, just down the house further. And I think the reason that, I think since the house was built, the zoning laws have changed. I think originally it used to be maybe 15 feet, and now it's 20, so that's why we're asking for the other thing. And like I said, the deck is a huge safety issue now, too.
Comments? Anybody in the audience left to speak in favor or against? Matter is before the board.
Motion to close the public hearing. Motion to approve.
Favor? Any opposed? You're all set. You're
Thank
approved.
you so much. Thank you for the invite. I'll shut this, I guess.
We have number 9, which is FRH Realty, LLC.
Nope. We're not doing this one? Notice is hereby given that the Board of Appeals of the City of Peabody will hold a public hearing on Monday, September 20th, 7 p.m. at the Wigan Auditorium, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, on the application of FRH Realty LLC, care of Attorney John Kelty, for a variance from the provision of the zoning ordinance 2019, as amended, Section 6.6, as applies to the premises known as 7 Dearborn Road, Peabody, map 78, lot 19. Petitioner seeks a variance and requests relief from the setback and impervious site coverage requirements. Property is located in a DDD zoning district. The application and plan are available to the public and can be viewed by contacting Carl McGrath or Carl.McGrath at PeabodyMass.gov or 978-538-5792 in advance and prior to the public hearing. The agenda for this meeting will be posted on the City of Peabody website.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk and members of the board. My name is John Kelty. I'm an attorney representing FRH Realty LLC. FRH is an affiliate of Fairfield Residential. Fairfield Residential is buying property at 7 Dearborn Road from 7 Dearborn Limited Partnership. That client is my client, located at 55 Cambridge Parkway, Cambridge, Mass. This is the third time I've been before this board. Well, I'm going to explain why it was not right to begin with. First time we were here, we got our variances. A year passed, no extension was asked for, and no purchase made. I came in and asked for the same variance again, and it was granted. This third time is happening because as the buyers, architects began to look, buyers decided they would work with the same architectural firm that had been engaged by the sellers, Dearborn Limited Partnership, and when Hayes Engineering saw the last iteration of architectural renderings, there were now decks pointed easterly, facing the other residential property. I had gotten a variance where we would be, our building corner would be 68 feet from them. Now I'm asking that we be 60 feet from them, and that is because the decks are an additional 8 feet into the airspace. The second variance, which is the first time we've asked for this variance, we're seeking impervious lot coverage of 63.5%, where 60 is allowed. The reason for the increase in impervious lot coverage is that buyer decided to put additional sidewalks, which were beneficial to the neighborhood up there on Dearborn generally. Those sidewalks would now consist of cement and impervious materials. There are ADA compliant rampings which will not trigger variances. However, they are comprised of impervious materials. Our architects located in Texas were of the opinion that we could use a certain kind of material and that they were pervious pavers. I vetted that issue with the Department of Public Services, and in the final analysis, we were not going to get credit for that material being pervious, so we have now asked for the variance of 63.5%, which would be to add impervious materials in the areas of sidewalks, walkways, and ADA compliant ramping.
Questions, comments? Matters before the board. Anybody to speak in favor or in opposition? Matter is before the board.
Motion to close the public hearing. Second. Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? You're all set.
Much.
And the last one for this evening is Tannery Limited Partnership signs, 18 Crown and Shield Street.
Notice is hereby given that the Board of Appeals of the City of Peabody will hold a public hearing Monday, September 20th, 7 o'clock at the Wigan Auditorium, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass, on the application of Tannery Limited Partnership, care of Expos Signs and Graphics, Inc., Denise Perrin, for a sign variance from the provision of the zoning ordinance 2019, as amended, Section 11.5 signs, as it applies to the premises known as 18 Crown and Shield, Peabody, map 74, lot 65A. Petitioner seeks variance to erect 4 hanging signs and 1 wall sign and requires relief to the number of signs, sign size, and sign height. Property is located in an R4 zoning district. The application and plan are available to the public and can be viewed by contacting Carl McGrath at carl.mcgrath@peabodymass.gov or 978-538-5792 in advance and prior to the public hearing. The agenda for this meeting is posted on the City of Peabody website.
Thank you. My name is Andrew Clark. I'm from Expose Signs. I represent the Tannery Limited and Wynn Residential, the management agents. I apologize that the Nicole, who is the regional marketing person from Wynn, is a newly minted mother, and so she was unable to attend tonight. We are requesting relief from zoning section 11.5 in regards to the signs. Again, 4 hanging signs where 1 is allowed, relief on the size areas for these proposed signs, and in addition to size on the wall sign and height relief from that. This property, if you're well familiar with it, is a long-standing renovation. Wynn has just spent millions of dollars newly renovating it. And Wynn is, a long-time supporter of restoration and repurposing old industrial buildings towards, newly to residential areas. There's the two parts that create the hardship is, one is it's a residential it's a R4 zoning, so it's a very large complex, not a small residential area. And the specifics of the building itself, it is a unique structural place, so some of the placement of where we could put signs more conveniently or more size towards these bylaws are unable to do that. Also, there's no option for ground sign because it is in a floodplain, and we were told that we can't create any more impervious coverings, even on small signs. So a lot of the stuff that we did on the property could have no cement even putting in there, like parking signs and things like that. So there's a real heavy restriction there that makes it impossible to put signs in the ground there. So and one other thing that the building signs on the Warren Street side, they have 4 of them there. They have to project from the building because there's very little, it's right on Warren Street. There's just a sidewalk, so people driving down Warren Street, a flat sign would not be seen. Plus, architecturally, the way the building is built, there's not a lot of space on the flat of the building to put a sign there. And again, a 10 square foot sign is pretty tiny for buildings the size of this. On the Crown and Shield side, they want to put a flat wall sign there. Again, it has to be seen from coming around the corner so that both the height and the size, because of the nature of the structure looking up into it, needs to be up high enough so that people can see it over the building that is placed in front of it, which is now the leasing office and everything. So both those particular site conditions are why we were asking for the relief of the section 11.5.
Thank you very much. I think we're all familiar with this.
Through the chair, if I could?
Yeah, sure.
I noticed that the signs say now leasing, and hopefully everything's going to, you're going to lease all your properties in there. So when that happens, you have no intention of using that as selling advertising or, or selling billboard space or no sign? What are your intentions of the signs?
Absolutely not. And actually, we do quite a bit of Wynn residential properties, And so this model has been used on several of their properties, the Canal Loft properties in Lowell, the Loft 550 properties in Lawrence, the Curtin Loft in New Bedford. And after the lease up, they put decorative banners in there so to add pizzazz to the thing. And there might be a mention of the property name, but mostly their color on the banners that project from the building. And so that is their typical mode. And I think if you looked at Loft 550 in Lawrence, you'll see that where they had a whole string of them after they leased up. It's all now colored things, and I think there's one or two that say, Loft 550, but they've moved to identity signs.
That was a good question. There's nobody in the audience to speak in favor or in opposition. The matter is before the board.
Motion to close the public hearing. Motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? You are all set, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your patience on this.
Thank you for your patience. Thank you. Do we need? It is lovely. It is lovely. Thank you. Carla, do we have? Well, buona fortuna. Well, have a wonderful time. It will be. Thank you. Carla, do we have to accept minutes? Okay. Our next meeting is October 18th. I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Adjourned.